All right. Good morning, everybody. I guess good morning to all of you in North America. If you're in the UK, good afternoon. If you're elsewhere in the world, good, whatever it is for you. I'm just happy that you're here, that you've joined us. We're here live today. And yeah, just, man, super excited to spend an hour with you this morning. So thank you for joining. My name is Nate Rowland. I'm a senior customer success manager and at Thrive. So some of you are very familiar with Thrive. Others of you may not be. I highly encourage you to check us out here on LinkedIn. We're here to talk about 5 steps to reinvent your learning culture. All right, there we go. Seeing some stuff come through in the chat. All right. So one of the things I really want to encourage before I dive in and start talking is that you use the chat function. So give me a good morning. Maybe let me know where you're joining from. Send me some stuff over that chat because this is much better when this is interactive versus the Nate Rowland monologue. I don't have a problem doing the Nate Rowland monologue, but I want to make sure that this is super enjoyable for everybody. So I'll be asking you some questions. Hey, Emma. Hey, Steph. Hey, Danny. I'll be asking you questions. Please use the chat, chime in, answer. We'll have some fun together, but definitely keep that engagement up. All right, we've got someone from Prague joining. Nice. Yep, from Nottingham. All right, great. Hey, from Liverpool. All right, sweet. Swansea. So I myself, Cape Town. All right, nice. Let's see, Gothenburg. Sweet. I'm in Illinois, so I'm just outside of St. Louis, Missouri, if you know where that is, like smack in the middle of the USA. Howdy, everybody. Yep. All right, good afternoon from London. Sweet. Hey, Jenny. All right, South Wales. Awesome. Awesome. Keep it coming, but I'm going to go ahead and start. I appreciate you guys chiming in some love. Colorado, sweet. So we're here to talk about 5 steps to reinvent your learning culture. Learning culture is I think it's always a hot topic, and what people want out of their learning culture, I think, kind of changes. It's changed over the last 10, 15 years to where most conversations I've had and been having, continue to have, are around the idea of continual learning, right? Getting people engaged in lifelong learning, continuous education, continuing to progress. That's really kind of the concept that we're tapping into today. It's not easy to change culture, right? Culture change is not just like a really simple, like, hey, we're going to change culture. Here's our 2-point, 3-point initiative, and it's done. So we're diving into the topic really to look at what are some steps, what are some actionable things that you can do today, start right now, to get that shift going to where people are engaged and excited about learning. Kara's asking, is this the biggest learning culture party on LinkedIn? I hope it is. Welcome to the party. I definitely think that this is a place to come and celebrate and be here with people that are like-minded, but to celebrate the idea of learning culture being a predominant model within your business or the business world in general. So I want to start off with a question. And this is where, again, I want you guys to use the chat. So blow it up. What is one thing that would impact your learning culture? So this is your thought, your opinion. There's no wrong answers here. This is your thoughts. What do you think is one thing that would impact your learning culture at your business right now? So I'll give you a second. Have a think about that. Let me know in the chat what you think would impact your business's learning culture. I have officially switched from coffee to the harder stuff here. So take a tiny drink while I wait for you guys to use the chat. All right, Alexandra is saying leader involvement. Ooh, yes, leader involvement is critical. I spent a lot of time talking about that. Accountability. Yes, accountability is a big piece as well. Employees given dedicated time. Yep. Time, again, yes. Leadership role modeling it and giving the importance it deserves. Yep. The right tech. Yep. Tech is important. Tech isn't necessarily always the solution, but it leads us to the solution, right? It makes getting that solution easier. That's why technology is so important. Feedback. Yep. Feedback culture, buy-in from leadership, senior leader engagement, ownership by employees. Yes. I think it goes both ways. You have that top-down approach where leaders model learning, right? But you also have to have it on kind of boots on the ground. So you have to have it start with the people as well. Safety to fail. That is so important. People feeling like they can make mistakes and learn from it rather than making mistakes and getting penalized or punished for those mistakes. Small steps, building learning routines, yes. Um, let's see, not knowing the path employees want to take. Yeah. So beginning to get that knowledge and understand where do employees want to go? What does, kind of that career progression model look like? And how can we build learning experiences that help people get there? Data. Yep. Speaking my language, Jenny. Transparency, missing context and relevance. Yes. The more context you can build, the more you can understand what people are trying to learn or trying to accomplish, the more you can align your training initiatives to that. These are all amazing answers. Like I said, there's no wrong answers here. You're expressing what's going on in your business, right? This is helpful information and sets a really good groundwork for me as we begin to talk through some of what I'm going to suggest are actionable steps you can take today. So based on all this, I want to start with the first point here, and that data, and that's why I said Jenny was speaking my language. Data is so important. I have a quote here from ATD saying learning and development needs to go beyond learner satisfaction and deeper into metrics such as behavior changes, performance improvements, and bottom line business results to demonstrate its impact or strategic impact to stakeholders. This comes from having data. So knowing what data you have access to, what data your organization has access to, and trying to find that way to marry the two things together. But data is so important because data can tell stories. Data can help us express the change that we see, but it's not necessarily always easy to get. So I don't want to say like, hey, it's just easy, go out there and grab data. Data can be complex, especially if you're looking at behavior change. How can you measure that? That's again, several of you mentioned like having leaders involved, leaders engaged. Who can measure behavior change better than the direct manager of somebody, right? If I manage a person, I'm going to see their behavior day to day and can make sort of those observational notes of seeing it changed. Now, there's other ways to measure behavior changes as well, but I think for me, when I'm thinking about, how can we get leaders engaged? They want to see their people do things differently, have them actually examine their people doing things differently and see that change over time. But the end result or the sort of the big picture here is being able to capture data. And the reason that we'd want to capture that data, right, always comes back to demonstrating it's whatever learning you're working on, whatever you're developing, assigning, leading people through, facilitating. You want to see that actually have a strategic impact on your business, and that the key stakeholders are notating like, yeah, this training works. We saw an improvement. We went from here, all the way to here, and we saw that movement with our employees there, how they acted. We saw an increase in sales, or we saw a decrease in our time to onboard. All that stuff is critical, but it's critical that we capture the data and then we have that measurement so we can give it to people. This leads me sort of to this big concept of level 4 evaluations. Now, I'm referencing level 4 out of the Kirkpatrick 4 levels of evaluations. So if that's something you're very familiar with, then I'm speaking something you already know about. If this is something you don't know about, it's one of those models that I highly encourage you to go out there and read up on. Tons of free information about Kirkpatrick's 4 levels of evaluation. But that 4th level, as Kirkpatrick partners actually say, is the degree to which targeted outcomes occur as a result of the training and the support and accountability package. It's a lot of big words. I'm going to simplify this for you. Show me the ROI. This is what every CEO, every executive ever is asking for. Show me the return on investment. When I think of level 4 evaluations, I'm typically thinking, how can I prove that this training has actually made the business money or prevented loss? That's where we're getting at when we're talking about data. We want to be able to tell those significant stories to our executives to be able to share, like, what I've launched this training. We have a beautiful LMS that we got from Thrive. We spent money on that. Here's the return on that investment. Here's what people are doing better or differently. Here's where we've saved the company money, or here's how we've increased sales, or our customer service, stats have gone up because every one of our customer service agents have gone through this specific pathway. These are the stories that we want to tell. So I talk about data and data collection and doing evaluations and gathering the data, but the real important thing is that you become excellent storytellers with those data points that you collect. Over the chat, Phillips has has a decent model too, that taps level 5, which is ROI. Yeah, so yeah, it's the Kirkpatrick 4-level evaluation. That model's been around for a long time. It doesn't surprise me that there are other models out there, especially ones that really speak to this ROI piece. I've heard my entire time working in L&D about, well, we don't get a seat at the table, we're not respected, they want us when they want us, and then when they don't want us, we're the first to go. It's hard for me to go and ask for more budget. I've heard all those things most of my career. What I will say to that is, you want a seat at the table, you want to have some authority or some buy-in when you actually do go and ask for a budget increase, when you do want to outsource or bring in some new content that costs money. If you want to do that, you have to be continually telling these ROI stories. So that comes from measuring data. So you want to start to change your learning culture. You have to start telling these better stories using hard data, just like everybody else within your business hopefully should be expected to do. Let's see. Danny is saying ROI is great for the business and CEO. Return on expectation is great for the L&D teams and learn. Yeah. Very, very good, Danny. I 100% agree with that. I'm going to shift a little bit and kind of change from this data and telling the story of return on investment and moving on to this next thought of this. And this is a question again I'm going to ask you guys. Would love to see your answers over the chat. Are we packaging pedagogy as andragogy? And the only debate that I've had people get in is how you pronounce pedagogy and andragogy. If you listen to Knowles, who I'll quote here in a minute, he actually says Andragogy. So that's a whole other debate for another day. But here's my question. Do we, as people in L&D, end up packaging pedagogy as andragogy? This could be a simple yes or no or maybe. But what are your thoughts here? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay. I'll get to that in just a second. But initial thoughts from you guys. Do we end up packaging pedagogy, which is, I'll spill the beans here. It's the way that we train kids. So you're thinking about classroom, teacher standing at the front. They have all the authority, they have all the knowledge, and their job is to dispense it. Versus andragogy, the way that adults learn or should be taught. Do we package pedagogy and say this is adult learning? What do you think? Is that a yes or no? Getting a yes, absolutely. Any other thoughts? Yes, no, maybe so. Circle one. Give you guys just a second. All right. I've either stumped you guys with this one or let's dive into it maybe a little bit more. So when you think about pedagogy, so good. Thank you, Jane. Excellent question. Yes. Yes. Okay, there we go. Now we're getting some answers. Yes, kind of. We make content for adults, but it tends to be sophisticated kids stuff. Yes. Here's the experience that I've had. So pedagogy is how, that traditional idea of how we train kids. Andragogy is adult learning theory, how we're supposed to be. Let's see, I'm getting probably, but that might be that forever learners share that curiosity with kids. Let's see, still in the industrial age approach. Yeah. So let's see, stop behaving like a pet and I'll treat you like an ant. Okay, great, Howard. Yes. So what I see a lot happen is that, and this again is coming from my experience, from experiences that I've heard other people share as well, is that we come with a lot of really great ideas on how people should be trained. We go back to our business, and what our business continually asks for is our old school methods, and leaning on Sajoy's comment there, that come from the industrial age, right? That really revolve around people clocking in and clocking out, very rigid way of work. That is not necessarily how everybody works today. But it's also the same thing with learning, right? I can't tell you how many conversations I have on a daily basis where people are talking about going back to the classroom, and yep, they like the idea of e-learning, or they like the idea of doing some videos, but they keep asking to go back to the classroom, go back to the classroom. They want everybody on site, they want us back in the classroom, they want it to be facilitated live, they don't want it to be virtual. And so we end up having to take these great concepts and all this work that we've thought of, that we've dreamed of, that we've worked very hard from a conceptual standpoint, and repackaging it in a method that doesn't necessarily work for adults. So the whole reason I asked this question, I leaned into this, is that I say that it's time that we do draw a line in the sand and really make the business case, really have that hard conversation about the difference between the two. We have a role and responsibility within our business to educate leaders on the difference between these two methodologies, and why one might work for kids and why it may not work for adults the way they think it does. And again, this isn't like, you're not coming to them just with opinions, you're coming to them with facts. Now, Knowles again said, this is going back to 1975, so these aren't like new ideas. This goes back into the 50s. But self-directed learning is a process in which individuals take the initiative without the help of others in planning, carrying out, and evaluating their own learning experiences. And this is kind of the heart of andragogy, or adult learning theory, is that there is this element of self-directed. I saw someone else talk about, mention curiosity. I think it was Malika, that the curiosity of kids. Well, that curiosity, I hope, never leaves us. I hope we always stay curious. But I tend to find that people, if you can really get them going, are curious. They want to dive down and learn more. It's just all the pressures of the environments that we work in don't necessarily facilitate us being able to be curious. So some of this conversation has to go into, like, what is the environment that we're training people in? What is the environment where people are learning? Do people feel free to learn? Do people feel free to kind of go down the rabbit hole if they need to and learn more about the subject? There's some people that can easily read a PDF and go and apply that knowledge. There's other people that every new word they encounter in that PDF, they want to look up, read, research. I tend to be that second category myself, where I will go down a rabbit hole. So even if I don't have all that information inside, the learning platform we're using, I have a phone. So you'll see me literally reading something, being like, okay, that word, how are they using it here? And then I'll start Googling. I'll go down my own rabbit hole that I'm designing now, if it's not provided for me, because I want to make sure that I am an expert in whatever it is that I'm trying to learn. So it's this idea that we give people the space to guide their own learning experience. Now, this is not like a conversation, believe me, this is not a conversation about learning styles, but it is a conversation that we do we do encounter things and we do learn things differently at different paces. Our brains are all wired differently. So it's more about the space, the time, and how like deep divey we get into content. So you have to think about what is the environment, what is the space, what are we doing to actually help people be self-directed in their learning. And if we're forced into a classroom situation, which is kind of like that the pinnacle of pedagogy, can we create within that environment, like a mini environment that encourages self-directed learning? Again, it requires more work, it requires more effort. But if you're looking, as the title of today's LinkedIn Live event is, you're looking to reinvent your learning culture, it really comes back to what are these experiences that we're creating for adults who are trying to learn stuff. So ask yourself that, challenge back to the organization, pedagogy versus andragogy, and then we can start to dive into where people are motivated from. So we're talking about self-directed learning. We're talking about going down the rabbit hole. We're talking about, deep diving into the specific pieces of content. This is where we get into like learner motivation. How are people motivated? So most of you, I'm hoping, are familiar with there's kind of two basic kinds of motivation: extrinsic and intrinsic. So external, so motivation that comes from the outside, versus internal, intrinsic motivation that comes from myself. And how are people motivated when it comes to their learning? Are they being motivated properly by the organization, right? Getting good extrinsic motivation? And can we tap into that internal piece and help hype them up so that they feel intrinsically motivated to learn as well? When we're thinking about that, I'm going to give you a really easy acronym. This acronym is CORE, CORE. So if you're looking to create motivation for your employees, to get them, provide, I guess the way I would put it is provide a bit of extrinsic motivation to fuel their intrinsic motivation. CORE is an easy acronym to use. Feel free to use this. Feel free to remix this. Do what this as you will. But here is CORE kind of summed up. The first is choice. That's the C. Content options, formal and informal. You have to give people choice. Do they need to sign up for a live class? Is it an e-learning? Is it a HBR article? Are there multiple pieces of content around a certain topic that provide different choices for how people can engage with the thing that they need to learn? Giving people choice, giving them options, giving them different ways to learn a subject. That's really where I would say start there. If you're looking to get people motivated, give them some choice, give them options, give them the freedom to help direct their own learning. Again, we're going back to that basic definition of andragogy. Next is ownership. So letting people self-evaluate, reflect, and demonstrate like application of the learning. How much time do we spend giving people ownership, letting them do a self-evaluation and reporting back? Whether that be informally by setting up conversations. That could be, giving people the option to sign up for like a coffee talk. I hate to use that term because that was a 1990s era Saturday Night Live sketch, but coffee talk, right? Are we letting people sign up and say, hey, we want to partner you with other people who have taken this training so you can like talk about what your experience was like, what you learned, how you think you're doing with that information? That's that self-evaluation piece, giving them the chance to reflect and have the space and time to think about it. We're so compressed with time. It is, I feel it all the time. I'm sure you guys do as well, that you're able to maybe do the learning event, but as soon as that learning event is over, you're on to the next meeting. You're on to the next thing. You're back to your emails. For some people, it's back to answering phone calls or making, cold calls, right? So are we giving people that space that they can actually breathe them for a moment and exhale and they, okay, what did I just learn? What can I do with this? What am I going to do with this information? How is this going to look in my work environment? So ownership is a big piece. The next is relatedness. user generated content is such a critical thing, I think, in 2023 and beyond. During the pandemic, I'm going to go back to 2020. This is the first time that I encountered TikTok, right? So I start hearing all the buzz. People are doing, dances and all. That's really where the hype was generated. I create a TikTok account. I log in, and all of a sudden, yes, I'm seeing all the dances and stuff like that. But I start learning stuff because people are sharing their experiences. They're sharing, hey, I learned how to, I think one of the crazes was I learned how to bake bread. I didn't learn that because that wasn't my interest, but I started seeing tons of videos like that. And then I was like, ooh, well, I like history, which I do. I love history. So I started looking up history, and all of a sudden people were teaching me all sorts of crazy stuff that I never heard of, like all sorts of facts, information, like, hey, this is my city. I'm going to give you a quick walking tour of my city and point out historical things. How are you going to get that experience, right? That's not coming to you from a big learning company, from a big organization. It's not coming to you from a major network or media provider. You're only going to get that sort of like boots on the ground experience from users. So user generated content to me like leapt up to like the top of what I thought was important during that era, because I saw how much learning and how much people were learning and how much behavior change was happening purely because of a social media platform that gave people the voice, gave them the freedom to share their thoughts, ideas, and passion. So user-generated content, if you want to get things going in your organization, I would say encourage user-generated content. Rope people in. Who are people in your business that do things really well? Get them to share their story. Get them to share how they're doing it. Get them involved. The other thing is cohorts. Getting groups of people that are similar, sometimes even getting groups of people that are dissimilar together to discuss topics, solve problems. Are you using that within your business? Are you taking new leaders and putting them in a group together and having them giving them the space to kind of talk through things, assigning them a piece of learning, and then giving them a group option to discuss that learning content? Relatedness is such a big piece in getting people motivated. Just reading through the comments here. A lot of tension between the needed and desire. Let's see. I agree. Unless there is intrinsic motivation to learn, time becomes more of a barrier. Yeah, time always becomes a barrier. And kind of what I guess, Alexander, you're also talking about, like, learning always slips down the list. It does, right? We have a lot of barriers to overcome within our organization. And I don't want to act like me giving you 5 ways, right, to impact learning culture is going to change those barriers. Those barriers are things that we have to take away at. We have to kind of chip down, break down, and have those conversations with our organizations. Going back to sort of the earlier points, talking about being able to tell those ROI stories using the data. If you want to see your organization change kind of at how the business perceives learning and how it perceives time around learning, I would say absolutely go back and say, what are we doing with our data? What are the stories that we're telling? And how are we going to give now learners the freedom and space to learn the way they should learn, or the way they do actually learn, which is that self-directed adult approach to learning. Going back to core, the last piece of that is E, and that's engagement. You have to make it fun. You have to make it exciting. You have to make it entertaining. There's a word that I've used a lot with the teams that I have led, and it's cringeworthy. So I'll just brace yourselves as I say this, but it's the word entertainment, and that we have to be thinking about how we can keep people slightly entertained while we are training them. If training is boring, people are not going to learn. And let me say that one more time. If your learning experiences are dull and boring, people are not going to learn, because their attention is not going to be on that event, on that topic, on that new process. It's not going to be there. So we have to put thought, time, and effort into how we're making engaging learning experiences. Because if it's just the same old thing that they've seen the last 20 years, they are not engaged with that. Compliance training, if that's something that you're responsible for, I guarantee you people are checked out with compliance training. So ask yourself the questions. How can we make it different? How can we make it fun? How can we make it exciting? If I can't change the content, can I change some of the circumstances around how they engage the content? Can we do something different with that? There are an endless amount of things that you can try, experiment with to make it make it engaging and make it different. But if you're not putting the effort in there, I guarantee people are feeling that. Let's see. Howard said edutainment. Yes, absolutely. Edutainment, entertainment, whatever you want to call it, go with it. But this is, again, a simple model, core. If you're looking to tap into motivation, get people motivated, this is a simple thing for you to keep in mind. Choice, ownership, relatedness, and engagement. If you focus on those things when you're designing learning experiences, I guarantee you, you're going to see motivation go up and people go on more of that self-directed learning path. Having said that, I know that within your organization, you're going to have some hype people. You're going to have people that no matter what you do, they're excited to learn. They're passionate. They want to learn. They're already there. They're already where you want the rest of the organization to be. So I want to give you a moment, and this is where I would love for you to use the chat. I want you to type their first name. Who comes to mind when I say they're in your organization, there is an L&D hype person? I want you to type their first name in the chat. Who is that person that comes to mind when we talk about your L&D hype people? The people who don't work in learning and development, that are in your business, that every time you release a new course, or if you're teaching, facilitating a live event, they're going to be there. That they're going to be like, dude, I'm excited. I can't wait. I'm pumped to see you do this. Who is your hype people? All right, there we go. Elaine says Jenna. Let's see, me. Yes, you do have to be your own hype person. But what are their names? What? Me? We got another me. Who else? I'm surely there's someone in your business that sends you an email, sends you a chat message. But I loved the training. I loved that class. I loved the new thing that you did. Who is that hype person? Your comms and IT team. Very good. Thank you. Yes, your comms and IT team. Great. What else? David. Thank you, Emma. David. So David, Jenna, the comms and IT team, your hype people. I'm going to give you a second to see if anybody else wants to drop a first name. Lisa. All right. Sylvia. There we go. Anyone else? Any other names? I want you to think me and the new hires. Yeah. Hopefully the new hires are excited. Yes. I want you now to just imagine these people, right? I want you to imagine Lisa and Sylvia. I want you to imagine Jenna and David, your comms and IT team, your customer support leadership. I want you to imagine these people. All right. Who are they? Why are they so hyped up? What is it about them that gets them hyped up? The reason I want you to think about them, and I want you to think about what gets them hyped up, is understanding, like, what is it about them that makes them excited about learning? Have you done that analysis? Like, why is David excited to learn? Why is Lisa excited to learn? Why is Sylvia ready to learn? Why are the new hires? Why are they excited to learn? Why is your customer support team? Why are they excited about learning? The idea here is that we have to begin to understand who these people are and tap into those things. Tap into the reasons why. Because ultimately, part of our role in L&D, as the job always does, it continues to evolve. People in L&D leaders specifically, have to be marketers. They have to market their training to their organization. So I'm getting curiosity. Yeah, very good. So if you're thinking about why Lisa loves Jackie's training, is it because she's curious? Is it because when she learns something new, she goes and applies it and sees an improvement in her day-to-day? Is it because learning new things just excites her? It could be any of those things, right? But starting to understand, what does that look like in your business? What are the answers some of these hype people give you? And can you tap into that? Can you tap into them? Because again, we have to start seeing ourselves as marketers. because we can create content all day. And believe me, my first job in learning and development, I was given a list of, I want to say, 100 different topics. And my leader just asked me, okay, we got to make training for all of this. And I was like, oh, okay. So I curate the learning, I publish it, right? Put it out there. Is anybody sitting and taking it? No, because do they know about it? Has it been communicated to them? What does that look like? Let's see. You said they feel better ready for leadership challenges they're facing. Yes. Those are stories you should be sharing with the organization. I like training because when I've sat through this course, I feel like I'm better prepared for the leadership challenges I face. That's a quote. Share that quote with the rest of the business. This is why I'm going back, Milika, to like who you called out here. But this is why my person, loves training. David understands the power of learning in regards to culture. So Emma, that's a great quote. Like our top learners understand how learning impacts the culture here, and we all want to make that change. If you're ready to make that change too, join me next week for this class. Right? We're talking about using these powerful statements that exist in your business. Interview your hype people. Ask them if you can quote them. Even if you don't share their name directly, there's a way to, again, our top learners are, some of our most engaged learners say this, right? Those are amazing, powerful quotes to use in an email or blast out, however you communicate within your business, to use to tell your business why they should be hyped too about what's going on. But you have to start seeing yourself as a marketer. You have to go out and promote your business. That 100 topic, list of courses that I made when I first got an L&D, the first thing I started doing, because I realized, well, people aren't taking these courses, is grouping them together. And then I would go in this is back when I was in a physical office, went and sat down, like, hey, do you have 5 minutes to chat? And I sat with different leaders in the business and just said, hey, we have all this training. I'd love to see your people do it and love to get your feedback. Could you have a couple of people review these courses and give me feedback? Now, one, I was doing it because, yes, I did want feedback, but I was also doing it just to get people to start taking the training, because I knew if they started taking the training that their conversations would naturally happen, right? And it took off. So then I started emailing and I came up with different ways, but I had to be my own hype person for this training to get people engaged, to get people going. So I don't want to give you just the marching orders of go out and market. I want to give you sort of an approach. One of the approaches that makes a lot of sense is the Disney Imagineer approach. So if you're out there and you want to market, you want to hype up your training, you want to start thinking about how you can talk about training differently with your business, this is a really easy approach for you to use. So stealing this directly or borrowing this directly from Disney, they have this kind of 7-part approach. Blue sky. So what could it be? And so this starts when you're designing your content. Or if you already have content designed, you kind of go back to like when you were designing it, go through your notes. What could it be? That's the blue sky. So that's really high level, big picture. What could it be? That's the dream big aspect of training. Concept. Then what is it? What is the thing that you're training on? Feasibility. What is it going to take to make this real? What does it take? What do we have to do to then actually, communicate the blue sky, to talk about the concepts? What are the designs? So what are details that will bring this to life? So if email is your primary way of communicating, what sort of things can you put in that email to really grab attention? How do you do it? Do you have the skill set to design something like that? Or do you need to bring in a partner? Do you need to partner with your marketing team or your internal communication manager, or whatever other department or resources you might have available? Installation. How does it all fit together? If I communicate this, am I ready for the influx of people that might sign up? Have I thought through all kind of the strategy around me hyping this up? And then opening day. Opening day is, yes, it's when things start, but it's also you taking a moment to be like, okay, how did this go? Did we do okay? Did we learn any lessons? Do we need to adjust for next time? So this, again, it's a really simple way to think about this. This is how Disney approaches when they design new things. I would say as you're designing new courses, keep this in mind, how you're going to market it, how you're going to communicate it, how you're going to talk about it within your organization. This is a really simple, easy approach to use, but you have to think through all the steps and make sure that you get there to be able to really, again, impact your organization and drive people to more learning. Shifting gears slightly, I want to talk about A Night at the Museum. One of, I think, the most, I would say, that for me at least, and I know that's conversation that's happening with a lot more people in L&D, was transitioning from someone who designed and created everything to being able to curate your own content, or curating content instead of designing your own. The idea of being a curator has really, really sunk in. And that's why we're going to talk a little bit about A Night at the Museum, because the best place for me to really think about curation really takes place in museums. Probably about 10, maybe a little longer than 10 years ago, but let's say 10. About 10 years ago, I was in London. I went to the British Museum, and I went through this exhibition on Hadrian's Wall. And I sat in this room, and I was surrounded by artifacts, and I was just thinking, man, they really did a good job of putting all this stuff together, but they didn't create any of this. None of these things, right, are things they designed. These are thousands of years old, but the way they organized it and the way they put them and framed them and set them up told a really wonderful, immersive story that I wouldn't have encountered had I just looked at this statue on my own, had I just read about this painting on my own, right? It was the way it was organized and structured and laid out. So it's this idea that curating isn't just going and grabbing content from a vendor and throwing it in a platform, but it's how you're organizing it and how you're telling a story with it. What are you doing as you're curating to make sure that your fingerprints are over that project, that there's still this pathway or this playlist or whatever you want to call it that you've designed or curated for your business still feels like your business, even if it's an e-learning that has, someone in a suit and tie talking about legal procedures. How can you make sure that the entire experience feels like it was curated or crafted for your business, for your employees, for your hype people, for Linda and David? How can you make it feel like it was specific for them? So I have a little activity here. Curation at its finest. I have a bunch of random things up on the screen. I want to give you guys I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I'm not going to give you very long. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. There's a bunch of random stuff on the screen. I want you to tell me what you think this story is. And this is not like, there's not like a real story here. This is you and your imagination. This is a creative exercise. So look at this stuff. I want you to come up with, what is the backstory here? What is the story that is being told? Why are all these things here? All right. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. And then I want to see some answers start coming through. What do you think this story is? Or what do you think the story that is being told is when you see this collection of random things? All right. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I'm going to time you on my phone. I'm going to go blank on the screen for a second and just let you wrestle with the randomness that you're seeing right now. So 2 minutes, and then I want to start seeing some answers pour through the chat. All right, I'm back. I'm starting to see some stuff come through. So all right. So Jill, I'm gonna go ahead and read yours. Devil mask breathe hot fire on dog. Dog woke up and kicked the ball. Ball toppled a statue off its plinth. The statue cracked open and a baby-faced doll popped out. Baby-faced doll is a huge national treasure. Dogs made king for finding the doll. That's perfect. Thank you. That is an excellent story. I personally appreciated that. Thank you, Jill. Let's see, Jane, how the past can inform our present. Very good. Yes, exactly. What can we learn from this? There's a lot of stuff in the past that we can use to inform our present. Let's see, Jenny is saying the story of bravery. I like that. Right? There's a lot. It takes a lot of bravery to look at that doll and not be scared. Let's see, Phil, you're saying the scary baby doll went on a killer rampage using these items. His dog, who held in high regard, was a motivation for the spree, but he was never found as a killer or was described as a as a rabbit. Perfect. Let's see, Lisa, in ancient Greece, there once lived a woman who gave birth to a baby bunny. When the bunny grew up, he was turned into a royal dog by an evil shaman. He now hunts in rugby. Perfect. Yes. Um, Sarah, never get drunk and go charity shopping. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Yes. Here's the thing. If you put a bunch of random stuff out, people are gonna come up with their own stories. I'll go back to some old, like, old school psychology that's out there. And if you give kind of sort of the blank space, people will All right. I'm hoping that you guys can see me. So very sorry about technical issues here. So see, using all this via mobile. Perfect. Okay. Let's go back. So we had random stuff on the screen. I have my screen up. I'm going to see how I can maybe share this. But yeah, so one second. All right. So with the randomness on the screen, right, we're getting people to talk about stories. I was about to talk a little bit about research from B.F. Skinner. If you've ever seen any of his research, he did a lot of experiments with pigeons around this idea of superstition. So that, when there are these gaps, that people fill those gaps of knowledge with, belief that comes from all sorts of random places. So when your learners are encountering your, learning in general, they might be very well filling those gaps if you're not telling the stories with things that aren't necessarily true. So it's really this idea that as you're curating content, that just having the content on its own doesn't necessarily fill the void. It doesn't fill the gap of what they need to know. It doesn't give you that cultural expression that they might need to have. It's just going to simply have content. So as curators, we have to start thinking about the night at the museum. What is a story that all of these things tell? How can I take content from different providers, put it into a pathway, and have it wrapped? Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Richard, for being the hero there. How can we gather all this stuff and tell a really good story with it? So I hate to do this, but let's go to the next slide. And that's where we get down into stuff like tribal knowledge, telling these stories. How have people learned since the beginning of time? Well, what social media, I think, has really done well, or done a good job at replicating, is this idea of sitting around a campfire together and telling stories. So when you have tribal knowledge, when you have knowledge that is tucked inside your organization, how do you get that knowledge out? How do you get that knowledge shared with the rest of your business? So the idea of sitting around the campfire or creating virtual campfires is really, to me, an important piece. Again, I'll go back to talking about user-generated content. Why is user-generated content so popular? Why does it work so well in most of the organizations that we at Thrive work with? It works well because it gives you that space to share the bits of tribal knowledge that formal learning initiatives often miss. Because you, as an L&D professional, aren't going to know everything, and that's okay. You can't know everything. You're not there day to day, doing the processes. If you work at a financial institution, you're never going to live the life of a bank teller or a loan processor. If you're in a grocery store, if you're in that business, you're not in the store day to day. Even if you went and spent a week, which is always what they want to do. We're going to have you spend a week. We're going to have you spend 2 weeks shadowing. Even that, you become far removed from that one-time experience, right? So your knowledge is always going to be on the decline because things change. And in business today, things change rapidly. So how do we get people around the campfire? That can look different at your business. It can look different, in many different ways. But are we creating these virtual campfire opportunities? All right, let's do the next slide. And it goes back again to this idea or concept from Knowles himself, that Andragogy is informal with a spirit of mutualism and warmth. So please feel free to use the hashtag KnowlesYknows. That's your, do it at your own, do it at your own risk. But it's this idea of creating spaces, creating an environment that is informal, that has a spirit of mutualism and warmth. And this idea of mutualism is that it benefits the person, the individual, it benefits the organization, and together we're better, right? Us sharing information, us creating a culture where people do share that knowledge, and institutional knowledge isn't entrenched in one person who lords that knowledge as, some sort of like maniacal, emperor, right? I have the knowledge. You have to come to me, and you can't lose me, because if you lose me, then all the knowledge goes. That's a horrible environment for everybody else to work in. It's good for them, right? They believe it gives them some job security, but it's a horrible environment for everybody else. So it's this idea of creating an environment that has a spirit of mutualism and warmth. And warmth goes back to how you feel. How do you feel about the your culture? How do you feel about learning? How do you feel about each other within your business? Does it feel warm? Does it feel friendly? Does it feel inviting? Do you feel like people care about each other? It's all these soft, touchy-feely things that myself, as a large, bald guy that played sports my whole life, never thought I'd end up in my professional career talking about quite a bit. But it is about caring about people. It is about sharing. It is about having some love for the rest of humanity, and saying, part of my job in learning and development is to empower people, enrich their experience, help them achieve their dreams, from a professional standpoint. All right, let's go to the next slide. So we talked about this a little bit already, and I've just got through some of the warm, touchy, feely stuff where I've expressed love and peace and hope. And now we're going to focus on the negative for just a minute. What business silos are the biggest pain in your ass? And I'm asking this question, and I've already heard some. Time, leaders not being involved, all of that stuff. So I'll give you just a second. And what I'd love to see over the chat is give me one or two of these silos in your business that are just a pain in your backside, that cause you problems. Now, they can be things that I already said. Is it time, that people don't have time budgeted? Could it be, other leaders in the business? What are those things? What are those things that you find to be silos in your business? So I'll give you just a second. Let these things come in over the chat. And thank you guys for hanging in with me as I lost internet service in my house. Still don't fully have it back. So I'm just appreciative that you're still here hanging out. So what are those silos? All right. So there's a lot of things that can be silos. Rich, if you'll go to the next slide. So there's a few things that I would say can bust those silos. And we really have to think about, okay, how can we break down these barriers? How can we move through for the business? Skill-based cohorts is one way. Thinking about your of same role, but maybe starting to group people by the same skills. So it gets people that work in different environments, different departments, getting them outside of those silos and mixing them together. The other aspect is, or the other silo buster, is social learning. So again, going back to some of what I've already talked about, user-generated content, but getting more of the social dynamic in, getting people to share with each other, share learning with each other. So it doesn't even have to be content they create, but it could be an article that they read. It could be anything. Are we creating, that environment within our business? All right, let's go on to the next. I know time is running out. So 5 steps to reinvent your learning culture. Here they are in clearly printed out fashion here. You can take a screenshot of this. We can also, I can make slides available for everybody. But 1, harness the power of data and evaluations. 2, influence learner motivation using core. 3, embrace the marketer mindset. 4, leverage tribal knowledge and curate your museum. 5, bust silos with skill-based cohorts and social learning. All right, so those are the 5 steps. You guys have been awesome. Can you go to that last slide? That's it. That's it for me. My name is Nate. I work at Thrive. I work with a lot of amazing people that have a lot of awesome insight into the business of L&D. I hope you got something out of the session today. I can hang out for a couple minutes if there's some Q&A. Let me know if you have some questions you'd love to answer with. I'd also love for you guys to connect with me here on LinkedIn. Hit me up, send me a message, ask me questions. I would also encourage you guys to connect with each other. So if someone made a comment and you're like, man, that was funny, or that was really good, or I'd like to know more about that, connect with other people that were here on in this LinkedIn Live today. Ask them to connect, and then talk. we're only going to get better as a professional, you know, career or group is if we keep sharing information, keep asking each other for help, and if we keep helping each other out. So make sure to use your options to connect with people, find ways to do that, and make sure you're making some friends out there in learning and development land. So don't know if we have any formal questions. I'm trying to see here. Yep, I'll field any questions if there are some that we didn't get to. All right, so please give an example on Disney. So yeah, thinking through like the Imagineer approach. So really I would say that the Disney Imagineer approach is best used or best leveraged at the very, very beginning of designing learning. So if you're thinking about designing a learning experience, it's incorporating this from it's a high level concept, but thinking about how you're going to communicate this. So what is again, going back to like the blue sky, what could this be? Write down all of your thoughts, right? What are all the different thoughts you have about how this learning could be communicated, could be shared? That's the go big or go home phase. Anything that you think might be exciting, excellent, even if it's like, hey, we might have some budget, here, or this might cost something, and I don't know if we have budget. Still write it down, go big, put all your dreams there, and then you sort of work through that. It gets to like eventually you kind of work through like what's actually feasible, what can we actually do. So if this does cost money, I'm going to go ask somebody, do we have the money to spend? Could we do a raffle or prize if we have, for the first 50 people that sign up? Okay, first 10 people that sign, first person that signs up, right? You kind of whittle down to what you can get away with. You get down to the feasibility of it, and as you work through, then like, okay, so then what in theory, like let's take this from theory to application. What is that going to look like in our business? And you're creating that actual plan, and you just work through that. So that's my best kind of example quickly of going through that Disney approach. Thanks for the feedback, Sajoy, Matt. There are loads of expectations that learning doesn't take that long, that they're going to attend this 30-minute session or 1 hour, or maybe even like, hey, we're going to give them 3 days. We want them to spend 3 days, and they're going to come out at the tail end of that, and they're going to be awesome leaders. Are they? Right. So where did you get that time expectation from? Where did that 3 days come from? Or where did the 90 minutes that you're dictating come from? I agree. There's a lot of unrealistic expectations. So with that, I'm going to drop off. Thank you guys so much for today. Join us for our next LinkedIn Learning. Yeah, I really appreciate it, guys. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.